Good afternoon and welcome to What the Fact, brought to you by Africam. Today we are three. My name is James Hendry. We've got Russ the Ranger, Russell Gerber, in the bottom right-hand corner, and bottom left-hand corner, the grey beard and multiply centuried experience of Lee Fuller. He is coming to us from the Cavenberg Resort in KwaZulu-Natal, and Russell is coming to us from White River, as far as I'm aware. Are you, Russell? No, you're in Cape Town. I should have asked you that before.
That's pretty far away, James. Cape Town.
It's Cape Town. That's right. Okay. And today what we're going to do is chat about safari destinations. We've all been to a few of them, and we're constantly asked where the best place to go on safari is. So that's what we're going to go through. If you'd like to send through any questions, this is an entirely interactive experience. You can do that on Twitter using the hashtag Africam. Hashtag Africam, that's AFRICAM. Hashtag Africam on Twitter. Any questions that you like, within reason, that relate to safaris, we will ask. We will not talk about Russell's booze collection. Okay, so we've all started off, guys. I think what we should do is just go around and just give a brief description of your guiding backgrounds, and I'll do the same, and then we'll get into our favorite spots. Lee, you go first.
Thanks, James. Firstly, in defense of my grey beard, I've actually just rubbed a bit of toothpaste in it to try and appear like I'm old and wise. And I would normally wear a very old cap, because I was told many years ago that a good guide has an old cap on, and it's quite a, when a guest gets off a plane and sees him like with an old cap, then they feel a lot safer. But born and raised just down the road from where I am now in KZN, and kind of been living in the bush for 22 odd years now. And started in the Kruger like most of us, and sort of cut my teeth there for 5 years, and then moved up to Tanzania, an amazing project that we were involved in there for 5 years. And then, been on my own for this will be my 12th year. So, if we don't count the last 20 months of absolute disaster, but kind of we actually I'm at a resort now doing a kids camp. So it's something that I did for 10 years, another little business that I had when I wasn't on safari. And I've kind of resurrected that in lockdown now, and just doing wilderness skills and campcraft and bushcraft skills and life skills with kids in the bush. So no screens, no parents. And we've got 10 little oaks putting up tents right now. Two of my colleagues are there setting that up, and I'm going to go and join them straight after this. So happy days.
Cool. Russell?
Awesome. Yeah, how's it, guys? Nice to hang out with you this afternoon. I wish you were at the pub here with me, but this will have to do for now. But for me as a guide, I kicked off my career at Pinda Private Game Reserve, also in KZN actually. Many moons ago, 2004, I kicked off there, and worked as a guide with them for not too many years. I was there for about 2 years when I decided to shift back to my marine biology background. Where I ended up actually working in Thailand and in the Bahamas, and eventually took me to the United Arab Emirates, where I worked as a dolphin trainer for 2 years, which was quite fun. But some ethical issues there that eventually got over me. And then I decided to come back and chase that safari dream of mine. And I worked as a safari camp manager here in KZN as well, in South Africa, and then also in Botswana, at a beautiful place called Vumbra. And then, as very similar to Lee, I kind of went off on my own as a private guide in about 2013, I think. And I've been doing that ever since. Also, except for the last 2 years, where many of you would have seen me hacking around on the screen at Africam, which has been great fun. So here I am again.
Cool. I started guiding in 2000. I think I guided for about 3 years full time, and then I did some training. I've ended up as a guitar teacher for my sins, for the ungrateful children of the rich, which brought in little food and about the same satisfaction. And I've spent a lot of time working on screen for Wild Earth. We did a lot of work there on live safaris, and up in Kenya and down here in South Africa. and the sort of private guiding thing is relatively new to me. But I guess an African traveller from around about the year 2000, often without people and sometimes with them. So that's it. That's where we come from, everyone. And like I say, if you do want to send through any questions, hashtag Africam on Twitter. So let's start again with Lee and say, Lee, give us a brief background of your kind of special places. Where are the places that you like to take people the most?
How long have I got, mate?
Not very long, but you've got a bit of time.
Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty easy question for me to answer because it's Madagascar. I went there for the first time in about 2002, and have ended up leading over 20 trips there over the last sort of 2 decades. And it's a place that has become a very big part of my life. And I was involved in a house there that I sort of sold during lockdown to stay afloat. But I think just the endemism. So the fact that 80% of every plant or animal, anything in the wild in Madagascar, 8 out of 10 of those species are endemic. So occur nowhere else in the world. It's World Lemur Day today. So 101 species of lemur. That's an injury, the biggest. Sadly, 17 species already extinct, and most of them gone extinct in the last 2,000 years. The biggest of which was the size of a gorilla. The lemurs are pro-simians, which mean pre-monkey. They sort of are the most primitive monkeys. Most of our trips are centered around trying to find, we're definitely not going to find 101 of them. I probably haven't even seen 70, probably 75 of them. So some of them are tiny, 30 grams, Madame Berth's mouse lemur, so the smallest primates in the world. So, Gabon, just culturally, it's a country that needs all the help that it can get in terms of wildlife, but also people. Down in the south right now, the worst drought in 40 years. So people there, I've read articles of them eating insects to survive. So that on top of COVID, the country's on its knees. It's not a wealthy country, minerally, no oil to speak of, so they're hugely reliant on tourism. And our trips there are certainly very regenerative, rejuvenative. We do an enormous amount of conservation work via some small NGOs and are involved in reforestation and to slow down the deforestation. That's the biggest problem there, is people are cutting down the forest to plant rice and farm cattle. And then another recent, I've only done one trip there, another country which is also very, very close to me now is Gabon. The jewel in the crown of West Africa, Africa's Eden in terms of, discovered, it's always been there. But Mike Horn, an adventurer, ended up on, finishing his, what was called a mega transect. He walked around the globe on the equator. And he finished at a place called Petit Luango, a small Luango. And Luango National Park, the jewel in Gabon's crown, is where the rainforest meets the sea. You get swimming hippos, you get western lowland gorillas, chimpanzees. It's actually the only place that you can see both chimpanzees and gorillas on the same trek. There's a hippo swimming, but the sad reality, look in the foreground, just piles and piles and piles of plastic. So Gabon, quite different to Madagascar, exceptionally rich in oil. And you cannot believe the oil reserves there. But obviously oil is finite and it's running out. But all that litter is flooded into, it comes from the Congo River. So Congo, Brazzaville and the Democratic Republic of Congo, these two big cities on either side of the Congo River, apparently there's 7 tons of plastic is bulldozed into that river every day. And the currents sweep it up and deposit it on the beaches in Gabon. So in terms of Africa, a guest of mine told me very many years ago that Africa is a beautiful tragedy. Wherever you see beauty, there's a hippo swimming in the sea, spectacular sighting. That's what we go there for. But the beach is just covered in plastic. So Gabon needs help too. And by us taking sort of high net worth individuals there, people that can make a difference, that's kind of in terms of legacy, and what I'm really pushing for now is to get that going. So 2 very special countries for me.
Lee, why do you think Gabon has, with all of its amazing wildlife, why has it struggled for so many years to become a tourism hotspot? Because it's had a relatively stable government for a long time. I can't really see a reason why, with its ecological reserves, why it's so poorly managed from a tourism perspective?
Yeah, James, I went there on my first trip as an exploratory trip for a company that were looking at investing in lodges and that. So I had to do a lot of homework before, and we only spent 10 days there, but we were flown around by the military and we just had this amazing experience. And I'd say it's oil. So they've not needed to do anything else other than tap into their oil reserves. And I stand corrected, but some of the most productive oil reserves off the west coast of Africa. Small country, just 1.3 million people. 11% of the country is national park, so it is being protected. Mike Horn got there and he just said this is the most beautiful place on the planet. And he got the president, Ali Bongo, whose son is now in charge, to declare 11% of the country national park, so second only to Costa Rica in the world. So fortunately, the conservation NGOs have made sure that there's much less logging, because that's another big problem in Gabon. But in terms of research, you've got these mandrills and just these incredible wildlife experience, forest elephant, forest buffalo, a thing called a water chevrolet, that's actually not even an antelope, that it's its own family. But tourism-wise, they've just never needed tourism, I don't think. So there's kind of a backpacker circuit, and now with sort of some new investment, and it's been hamstrung by COVID. But there's some big players showing a lot of interest in it, and it's a privilege to be involved in that space in terms of linking the right operator with the right area. And as a sort of bit of a consulting job of mine, it's something that is hopefully, fingers crossed, going to pick up again after COVID. I think that's it.
Russ, your favorite two spots?
Yeah, before I give mine, I actually wanted to say, Lee, I mean, I've been fortunate to guide Madagascar only a couple of times so far. I was just sort of kicking off, heading out there with before the pandemic, and I mean, I was blown away, as you would imagine, from a safari guide point of view, going to focus on such amazing small animals, such huge endemism, as you said. But what I found there too is actually similar to what James said about Gabon. Is even there, there's been, it seems they've lagged a little in terms of their, conservation tourism, certainly from the forest point of view. I think they've kind of done the beach thing quite well, but the forested stuff, it seems quite, kind of at the beginnings of its growth. And also what I found is from other colleagues, and I'm sure yourself, that over the years, from when people have first started traveling out there, the forests have shrunk incredibly, just in the last 10 years. What do you think, what are your thoughts on the future of tourism for Madagascar? I mean, I have my concerns for them as well.
Yeah, it is concerning because, Gabon is part of the Congo Basin. So if Gabon got wiped out, all those animals and trees in that are found in their neighbors. But if Madagascar gets wiped out, that's it. And I think it's probably politics has got involved a bit there, and kind of a disinterest in the wildlife. Also because it's relied on French and Italian beach tourism for so long, and they kind of they shoot the lights out. They have that resort atmosphere. There are a few lemurs and like a bit of a cage thing behind the hotel, and the average guy who's there is not there really to see wildlife. He's there to lie on the beach and snorkel and whatever. But more and more, certainly with the introduction of time and tide, they built a project called Miavana that's just sensational. I mean, it just absolutely shoots the lights out, and it's kind of put Madagascar on the map. And when a big player like that invests as much time and effort and money into a place that's relatively, it's a tricky investment. It's not a solid investment by any stretch of the imagination. But it kind of, I've seen since the introduction of Miavana a kind of shift towards the positive again. And we're taking people that we might not have taken to Madagascar previously because there just wasn't the sort of levels of comfort that they are used to. Now they're going, and they're not only going to Miavana. We manage the expectations, and we put them in very remote mobile tented camps, and that is a bit of a positive. But not having been there now for 2 years, it was actually my last trip in February 2020. So we'll be back there, all things being equal, sort of halfway through next year. So I'm
heading out that way as well. So I'm excited to see. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, to see what it's looking like. But yeah, as you say, I mean, there are those concerns, but for me, one of the amazing things that, or just for one of the companies that I guided for, or am guiding for, that the numbers of people booking to go have also skyrocketed, or certainly were, and to go to see, not just to go lay on the beach, very much to get into the forest and go see the Hendry and all the
Yeah,
amazing lemur species, and counting the
yeah.
number of mouse lemurs we see, walking back from the beach back to the lodge. I mean, that stuff is really cool and quite unique, not something we really do on safari at the risk of being eaten by something on the way back to the lodge. So I think, yeah, it's a cool experience, and I'm interested to see how they're doing.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
massive,
for sure.
massive country, though, isn't it? I mean, you don't go there on a holiday and see the whole place, do you? I mean,
Yeah.
you can
Well, you
you either
can,
go north,
with chart. Yeah,
yeah,
the road system is appalling in terms of it's fun for an hour or two, but just badly maintained roads and pretty old cars makes it fairly hazardous. So we have done sort of north to south. It's 1,000 miles long and
yeah.
about 200 miles wide and spot. But so it is a big chunk of land. The world's fourth largest island. So yeah, we have managed, because of charters, which are a fairly recent addition now. Maybe in the last 10 years, managed to get east to west, north to south, and we generally in a 2 week trip would cover 3 or perhaps four destinations.
Okay, cool. All right, Russell, take us back onto the
Alrighty.
mainland.
Back onto the mainland for me, I have to say, as much as it disturbs me being a proud South African, my favorite safari destination is, and probably always will be, the Okavango Delta. Ever since my first trip out there, I was blown away by the wildness of it. The untouched feeling you get when you get out there, the smells of that amazing sage, that wild sage smell that everyone knows as soon as you hit the ground. It's that smell of the Okavango. Yeah, for me, easily one of my favorite spots to go on safari. And I've been lucky enough to do quite a lot. I do quite a few trips every year, before the pandemic, as always. But it was, yeah, and as still is, one of my favorite places to go. And for those reasons, I think, such a sparsely populated country, it's such a big country, invariably you're going to have these amazing wildlife locations. And I have to say, both of my spots today are Botswana, one being the Okavango and the
Yeah,
other, the Kalahari. I know Lee is a big fan, and I know you love the area too, James. I watched your YouTube videos on it, but the Kalahari, Khadagadi, and Makhadagadi as well, Jack's Camp, all those areas, just unbelievable in terms of experience. The things you get to do out there, like sleeping on the pan, having a sundowner on the pans with nothing else around you for miles. And this was a shot that I took, actually my last safari as well, before this year, before the pandemic. And this was, just on the edge of the pans, all the zebra that were there, that amazing, almost secret migration that happens in Botswana, these tens of thousands of zebra moving north to south every year that a lot of people don't know about as well.
yeah.
But yeah, I would say the Kalahari is, for me, unbelievable, as well as the Okavango. Those two spots, I could do 20 safaris combining those two every year, and I'd be pretty happy, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have a go now and go completely traditional. I think that, I
Good
mean,
man.
I've loved the Kalahari, I must say. I think it's fantastic. Botswana. For some reason, the Okavango, I loved it. All of these destinations I love, but I found it so flat. There isn't a mountain in Botswana. There isn't a
Yeah, but I
stone in
have
the
a mountain in
Okavango.
front of me all the time. I don't
There
need
you go.
mountains anymore,
And
man.
so, having spent, again, look, it's obviously where you spend a lot of time that often tends to be your favorite. But having spent 7 months in one year, and then 3 months for a few years after that in the Mara, phew, I struggle to find a place that I don't find more appealing than that. There just always seems to be something to see. There's
Oh,
a
beautiful.
view, there's a herd of elephants. And because there's so, you can elevate, but because there is so little actual bush, there's just these vast swathes of grassland, you can see so far, so you can spot stuff happening. There's always a herd of buffalo, a warthog running away from a lion, I mean, prides of lions sitting on termite mounds. There's just so much to see, and that's outside of the migration season. And obviously, if you go then the migration, it's tricky from a human perspective because our species doesn't behave very well when the carnival of the migration is on. In fact, if you want to feel ashamed of our species, it's a good time to go to the Mara. But if you can just accept that and accept that you're going to go there as a sort of celebration of life and accept that there are going to be a lot of people doing the same sort of thing, I mean, to see the abundance of that migration is just utterly beyond speech. So for me, an all-round safari experience at the moment, um, I would probably head to the Mara, but there are so many places I haven't been that I'd still like to go. So it brings me to my next question to both of you, and that is where if somebody came to you and said, Lee, I've got 2 weeks to live and I'm going to spend 10 of those days on safari, where should I go? And money's
Maasai,
no object.
Maasai
Would
Mara.
you? Would you
Yeah,
really
so
say?
so without a doubt, and I'm putting a trip together. I got a phone call 4 nights ago. That exact question. I did an interview for a company called Indigara out of New York that I guide for, and they did a kind of responsible travel interview, kind of a post-COVID trends, what's going on, and they released it last week Wednesday, and I got a phone call that night, and it was kind of to do with two safaris, one that we kind of a bit of a quick one in January, but yeah, then it was like we're coming. We're coming in the second half of next year. Where should we go? First time to Africa. And it took me about 1 second to say the Maasai Mara, because it is the quintessential Africa. You can combine it by flying across Lake Victoria and go and see the gorillas. And yeah, if you had 10 days to live, I'd say the gorillas, to me, is the most humbling wildlife experience on earth. And the Mara is quintessential Africa. When you think Africa, you close your eyes. It's the elephant bull standing on the plains. Beautiful shot of yours there, JMO. It's the lone giraffe standing under the tree. It's the migration jumping into the Mara River and crocodiles eating them. It just ticks every box. I always say a chef could take a game out there. No offense to the chefs, but
Yeah. No, no,
it's just
absolutely.
spectacular. Yeah,
I agree with
yeah.
you. Yeah. So Jono was asking the best place for a first-time safari experience. So I think those would be Lee, and my answer would be the same. Russ, what would you say?
Look, I mean, it's very hard to talk down the East Africa in general, and I wouldn't. It's magnificent. I think the only issue that I've ever had there is, as you said, James, is just the number of people, and the way that it is structured. National parks, which is great because it gives so much access to a lot of people, which is what we want. But at the same time, you do get some overcrowding at times, and that can be, for me, is the only small issue that you could deal with there. But as you guys know, there are certain concessions you can go to that are a little bit more quiet. But look, having said what I said, I can't now back away from Botswana, and I wouldn't. I think as a whole, from a river experience up at Chobe, kicking off your safari in that region, such a different vibe of seeing the elephants, buffalo, and all the animals coming down from a water experience like that on the Chobe River, just unbelievable. Then moving into the Delta, the flood itself, the whole environment, how it actually survives and exists, how the system works, to me, so interesting and, so fragile as well. You think of just the smallest little thing, damming of a couple of rivers in Angola could destroy that entire ecosystem. And then, to finish off your trip in a desert, semi-desert region in the Kalahari with unbelievable stars, slightly different experience. Yes, if you're a person who needs mountains, this is not the trip for you. But if you want wildlife experiences, this is the place to go.
Cool. Kathy wants to know, is there a best season to go on safari? Now, I mean, we've all been asked this. What's the best time of the year to come to Africa? And of course, it's I mean, it's not a question that's very easy to answer. In fact, it's impossible because the weather is different between Morocco and Cape Town. Although those two places have surprisingly similar weather, I think. I think people forget how vast, Kathy, the African continent is. It's 3 times the size of the continental United States. It straddles the equator. So, it's summer in Libya when it's winter in South Africa. I wouldn't suggest Libya right now as a safari destination, in case you were thinking of going there. And certainly, there are good seasons. I don't think other than the East African rains, which make it, and some of the sort of central South African rainy areas, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, there are no really bad times to go. East African rains in the long rains, sort of April, May, and December, short rains, and then the kind of rainy season in Zambia and northern Zimbabwe kind of area, sort of December, January, you can get inundated. But other than that, I'm not sure that there's a bad time to come out here. Would you guys agree?
No, absolutely. Like you say, there's no one answer. If you can only travel in the second half of March, we'll hook you up with kind of the best spot, depending on your preferences. Madagascar, there is a tendency for the cyclones to sort of appear around February, March. Some years you don't get one, some years you get 3. So generally, lodges, camps would be closed over that time, and that would kind of be the only time that I'd say don't come to Madagascar. But yeah, for the rest of it, certainly the rainforest experiences, looking for the big primates and the great apes, it's a rainforest. It's going to rain all year round. And there is a sea sort of down in Southern Africa, we'll say, in our winter, which is the opposite of in summer, obviously. So generally, my busiest time, I'm generally away more over break, into fall. So second half of the year, so yeah, kind of my five.
But I think, Kathy, the question, I mean, your question is answered by saying if you can come on safari at any time, there is a place on the continent which will be amazing. I mean, Russell's favorite in the Okavango would be sort of wintertime, hey, Russell? But which would seem like a strange time to come on holiday, but it'd be great up there.
Absolutely, but it just depends what you want to see. You want to see the floods. That's a great time. June, July, you're going to see a lot of water around. Going now, if you're dead keen on predators and you want to have your best shot at seeing something killed, by another animal in Botswana, October is a good time to go. But it's hot. I know you guys were just up in northern Zim. This time of year is boiling hot. It's super dry, and so the animals are all concentrated around water sources. But you get a lot of animal interaction because of that. So, as you say, there's always a time. I mean, any time of year you can come. There's somewhere good.
Yeah, we've just been to Mana Pools where, I mean, it was 42 degrees on some days, and we ran out of water at one stage, which wasn't ideal. But I mean, look at that. That's just, you get used to the heat after 3 days, and then it's just amazing because the water is all concentrated. The animals come down to it. It's gorgeous. So yes, I mean, if you're not keen on heat and you need air conditioning, perhaps that's not the spot for you. But there are plenty of other spots in October to go to in Africa. All right, we're going to wrap things up now. Lee, if somebody wants to book a safari with you, how do they do it?
Phone me. I've got a website, Lee Fuller Safaris. So give us a call. Okay. Don't phone me in the next 2 days because I'm going to be in the mountains with kids, and I might be a bit distracted. But I've got an Instagram thing as well, which I'm navigating the blind, leading the blind, trying to do that. So is your website
on your Instagram handle? Because your Instagram handle is on the bottom of your screen there, so people can find your website. on your
Yes,
Instagram
yes.
profile.
Yeah, so sometimes the link in the bio, a blog or something like that I've just written, and I'm also associated with a few other companies as like an ambassador.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, Instagram Lee Fuller Safaris or leefullersafaris.com. That's the best.
Okay. All right. And Russell?
Cool.
Cool, yeah. Thanks, James. Russ the Ranger, on Instagram, I think is the easiest way. Anyone can get hold of me through there. Drop me a private message, but otherwise, it's actually not on my profile, but I'll actually update that now. My little website as well is Five Horizons Safaris.co.za. Five Horizons Safaris.
Right.
So yeah, anyone can get hold of us anytime. Put something together anywhere in Africa.
No.
It's a good place to visit.
Cool. Mine is
I think
my
we need
Instagram
some
handle is
lessons
there.
from James, by the way. Hey Lee,
On
I
what?
think he's the man to talk to about Instagram. I mean, have you looked
Definitely.
at
No, the clever
his
thing to
compared
do-
to ours?
No. What you do is you marry a young woman who understands it and she does it for you.
Watch this
Or
space.
jameshendry.co.za if you want to book a trip, and we'll find a place to go that suits you for hopefully the right budget.
Cool.
Good. All right, Lee, we're going to let you go back into the fern forest. I'm extremely jealous. I'll go out and touch the grass outside and see how that feels. And Russell, you can go and climb a mountain just to get your fix before you
I'll
go
go look
back
at
to
the
the
mountain.
flatlands of
Yeah.
Botswana.
Cool.
Thanks very much,
Thanks,
guys.
Guys.
Yeah.
Hope to chat
Thanks,
again soon.
everyone.
All the best.
Cheers. Have a nice
Cheers.
weekend, Jeds. Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.